I'm Rabbi Mike Moskowitz. My pronouns are he, him, a guten erev Shabbos, and thank you for coming out, which is a little pride humor. It's a tough crowd. Happy Pride. It's okay. Oh, slow and steady. Borrowing language from the queer community, I was actually assigned secular at birth, and came out as Orthodox in high school. The people who knew me when I was a kid tell me they always knew. But in all seriousness, the need to be seen and understood for who we are isn't just relegated to the human experience, but it's actually sourced in the divine. The divine revelation, otherwise known as God's coming out speech, is where God tells us who God really is. And just 40 days later, 17 days from today, on Shavuos Tammuz, the 17th day of the month of Tammuz, we serve the golden calf, which is seen, idolatry in general is seen as so egregious because it erases God's identity as the infinite source of the universe. And that's something that we can relate to the divine through the LGBT experience. And so to the LGBT community, particularly to LGBT youth and the trans and the gender conforming, non-conforming, and fluid and non-binary youth, we see you, we love you. God doesn't put extra people in the world, we need you. And this is a very difficult time for the LGBT community, particularly for trans youth and access to healthcare. But this is not the first time it's been difficult. We've been here before. When my teacher and my ally, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, first came to CBST, it was at the height of the AIDS crisis, where there wasn't a Shabbos, where people were not in mourning for those who had just passed away from AIDS, for those who were in hospice. And one of her major contributions early on was seeing Shabbat as a break from all of that. It was a time to lean into the joy as a spiritual resistance, joy as a political resistance, joy as a way of nourishing ourselves and rehydrating ourselves spiritually to be able to emerge into a week where there's more work to be done. So I want us to think for a second about this moment entering into the Sabbath and the way in which our tradition offers us a neshama yisera, often translated as an extra soul, a more dominant soul, an expansive soul. Within the Jewish tradition, there's a gendered component to that, which is necessary for us to really kind of experience and occupy space within the texture of time of Shabbos. Regardless of our gender identity or sexual orientation, we turned around to the Sabbath bride, modeling intimacy as an invitation, and we waited for the enthusiastic consent of the Shabbos bride to come into this space. In your prayer books, it says Friday night, Vainuchu va, in the dynamic between us and the Shabbos bride, and Shabbos in the divine, it's in the feminine that dwells in her. Shabbat morning, it's Vainuchu va in the masculine, in the afternoon service, Vainuchu vam in the plural. And there's an arc. We learn a lot about the Shabbos bride tonight, and we get to meet her again tomorrow night when we say goodbye to the Malava Malka, to the Shabbos queen, but we don't really get to see her so much during the day, because there's a different dynamic. So the neshama yisera, the expansiveness of the soul, which is sourced in the divine, actually enables us to be able to be more available and sensitive to the gendered components of Shabbos. We're created in the image of a God that has no image. God has gendered attributes, but God doesn't have a body. And we have a tradition of gender-based spiritual practice. So when we think about what it means to relate to our source within our most pronounced identity, which is being created in the image of the divine, it really requires us thinking about being able to meet at this moment with an expansiveness that pushes away the narrowness of the constriction of the oppression of the world. So let's just take a deep breath and feel the expansiveness coming from within. And I want to share just as an intention that as we meet these very difficult moments, we find the strength of the community. The more people in the room, the more God in the room, the more God in the room, the more holiness in the room, and the more wholeness of gender identity. That's one of the issues that we read about in this week's Torah portion. Korach presents as somebody who cares about everybody. And he asks, why is it even necessary to have particular spaces which are different, right? All lives are holy. It's the false piety of all lives matter. Why do you need to have a Pride Month? We don't have a straight month, right? Why is it necessary to be able, why is it so essential to be able to recognize the differences? Aren't we all the same? And part of the ways in which the rabbis understand this is, in order to be able to connect to the divine, we need to be able to be sensitive to the reflection of the divine in each other. When the Ten Commandments were given, the verse in the Bible spells it chaser. It's missing the letter vav in the word luches. And the medieval commentator Rashi points out that, quoting the Medrash, that there aren't really two sets of 5, there's one set of 10. And we know that the first 5 is between us and the divine, the second is between us and other people. And the Medrash says that one can't be bigger than the other, meaning that we can't prioritize our relationship with the divine as opposed to the relationship with each other. That if there's a truth about religion, it is that the way that we treat other people says a lot about our relationship with the divine and faith. And we can't come closer to the divine by distancing or negating the needs of other people. And within the Jewish tradition, the way in which we do things matters. The word for piety, chesed, is the same word as kindness, chesed. The word for someone who's righteous, at tzaddik, is the same word as justice, tzedek. You want to know who's really pious? You want to know who's really a big tzaddik? It's the person who's able to be competitively kind, who's able to move about the world with micro affections, where there is no space of the mundane, that every human interaction is an opportunity to come closer to the divine by elevating God's children. Particularly if we want to have a relationship with the divine as a parent, we have to ask ourselves, is this how you treat family? And so Korach, who comes and says it's all good, because he has privilege, because he has access, because he has agency, he feels like because he's good, the world's good. An allyship which within the Jewish tradition is understood as not a quest to reduce or minimize the oppression, but really it's an invitation, it's an obligation to remove it. The word that we use in the Jewish tradition for allyship is the word chaver. It's often translated as the word friend, very famously used in a eulogy by President Clinton for Yitzhak Rabin. But it's a language of connectivity. If an author is known as a mechaber, if something's attached to the ground, it's mechuber l'karka. In one of the 48 ways of acquiring wisdom, the Maharal puts it as the last. It's in the 6th chapter of Ethics of Our Ancestors. It says to be neisa ba'olim chaveroi, which is often translated as to help shoulder the burden with a friend. That's how it's understood. Something's heavy, it weighs 100 pounds, so you'll come and you'll help somebody carry it, so you'll divide it 50 pounds each. The Maharal says if that's what it meant to say, it would have said to be neisa im chaver ba'oil, to carry with my friend the burden. So the Maharal says that what it means is somebody who is not in a particular oppressed or marginalized segment of society, being able to network their needs to the resource to remove the oppression altogether. Because we don't want to minimize it, we want to make sure that it doesn't exist. And that's where Korach falls short. Korach doesn't understand the lived experiences of other people, that he has a sensitivity to understand that the world's actually quite broken for him and for those around him. A proof text to this concept is by Joseph. The verse tells us that the brothers saw him from afar and sought to kill him. It's much easier to dehumanize somebody from a distance. And so really there is no substitute for proximity, there's no substitute for relationship building. I'm so delighted to be here with you this evening. Tonight we're going to continue the conversation, and all of this work is informed by the lived experiences of others, and we're going to be discussing the texts that historically have been used to support homophobia and transphobia, and seeing them within their proper context and religious and the rabbinic methodologies. But I'll just say that I do a lot of interfaith work. And it's always interesting to hear from faith leaders of different communities where their first question is always, but Rabbi, what do you do with this verse in Leviticus? And I always think it's so strange because my first thought is, what do you do with every other verse in the entire Hebrew Bible, right? Like we don't keep Shabbat on the same day. And if the only verse that a person cares about in the Bible is about homophobia, like it might not be about the Bible, right? It might just be about people's homophobia. So that's really the gift of being able to be in community. That's the gift of being able to experience the Sabbath in different dynamics of gender. It's the gift of being able to recognize that we, in partnership with the divine, have access to the infinite, and that we're really invited and as a result, perhaps obligated to restore the world to a place where it's not just healed from the brokenness, but that when we get to that place, all we'll remember, be able to experience is the present unity and the joy that comes with being able to really come together. Thank you for having me again, and thank you for coming out.